Missouri Viewpoints. Now, we are going to be in reruns, or as we like to say, best ofs throughout the summer, because we know you don't like the word reruns. But we're going to start recording new Missouri Viewpoints programs in September. But in the meantime, I wanted to get some additional interviews in to keep the conversations going on a lot of the issues affecting our state. And joining me right now is the Executive Director, the CEO, the President of United for Missouri, one of the most active and influential conservative advocacy groups in the state. And just as a matter of disclosure, United for Missouri is going to be a sponsor of Missouri Viewpoints, among the sponsors for the rest of the year. And so, Carl, appreciate you partnering with the show the same way that the Missouri Budget Project and AT&T does. And thank you for the time today.
Hey, Mike, I'm glad to do it and glad to support the show.
Well, let me ask you this. We are hearing so much about the term dark money, and that's what I wanted to talk to you about. And it's interesting because in my full-time job, which is actually with the Show Me Institute, this was brought up as a real concern. But the interesting thing is, Carl, the term dark money refers to donations made to politically active organizations or think tank groups, but it's not necessarily a conservative or a liberal thing. Give us kind of an update or an explanation of what is it that we're talking about before we get into the policy question.
Yeah, so dark money actually is a pejorative term, and as you said, it crosses all spectrums of the political arena. And so people want, basically what dark money is talking about is they want to require nonprofits to disclose donors to those organizations. And that's a significant problem. Again, irrespective of where you're at on the political spectrum, we do know, we've seen it elsewhere, that by exposing donors who have the First Amendment freedom of political speech through their giving to that exposure, that makes them subject to harassment on various levels. And you don't have to be a $5,000 donor or $1 million donor to be harassed. You could be harassed just $5 to $10 to an issue that people didn't agree with, and the next thing you know, you may be out of a job. So that's dark money as they've described it, but it really is an attack upon our political speech.
Well, let's talk about that attack on political speech, because what's being argued by the people who say we need to change the rules, and really this is a lot of ways centering around Governor Eric Greitens and his conflict with mostly Republican state senators. They're saying we don't know who's donating to his political action committee, so we don't know who's influencing his decisions. We have a right to know because we want a government that is transparent. And that's all the keywords that we want, because I think everybody says they want transparency in government, so why shouldn't we know who's donating to political action committees that are supporting particular politicians or causes?
Okay, first, so we need to get the terminology clear, because there is some, in my opinion, some blending of these terms on purpose. And you just said political action committees. Nonprofits, 501c4s, even 501c3s, et cetera, are not PACs. They are not political action committees, because PACs actually do have to report their donations. So what we're talking about are nonprofits, and you hit it exactly on the head. While the discussion of this topic has been around for quite some time, actually it goes back to the 1950s at least, the fact of the matter is that the current drive for this, particularly here in Missouri, has been Governor Greitens and his apparent use of a nonprofit. And so what there are solutions to the issue of transparency. The first thing people need to remember and repeat often is that transparency is for government, not citizens. Citizens have the right and the freedom to privacy. And so transparency is for government. So if they want to end this problem or address this problem they currently think that they're experiencing, it's all appearances, by the way, but the way you solve that is by tightening the existing state statutes on elected officials' coordination efforts. You could stop a lot of what's going on by doing that, by establishing a revolving door for campaign staff going to politically active nonprofits. So there are a number of ways to address this issue without stepping on the rights and freedoms to political speech of citizens. So transparency is for government, privacy is for citizens.
When you decide to engage in free speech, when you decide to engage in advocacy, do you have a responsibility to disclose who you are and what you're supporting with your money?
we always support or always tell people that United for Missouri is supporting this or opposing an issue. We're getting ready. We're revamping our scorecard, and we'll be releasing that in the next few weeks. And we'll have a big rollout about that. United for Missouri does not hide from who we are or what we're doing, but our donors deserve, again, the access to their freedom of speech, political speech, through their donations, and they deserve the privacy. But government does need to be transparent.
Have there been cases where people have had repercussions either in the private sector or public sector for making donations to advocacy groups or making donations to nonprofits that advocate or oppose for different issues?
Oh, absolutely. There are a number of cases that emanated out of California a few years ago when they had, I believe it was Amendment 8 or something like that, that talked about one man, one woman marriage type deal. And we know that one of the CEOs of a major internet company was forced out of his job because he gave $1,000 to the pro side of that. We also know that there was a waitress that gave just $100 in support of that issue, and because of protest at the restaurant that she worked at, she lost her job because that's what the protesters wanted to happen. And there are a number of issues across the country. There were John Doe investigations in Wisconsin of the Wisconsin Club for Growth. Eric O'Keefe and many others had early morning raids and seized information out of their homes. And they were told that they could not talk about the raids at all. And those were all repercussions because of their support and the Club for Growth in Wisconsin of the right to work issues that were occurring there. And so this is occurring. This will occur. We know it occurs. And again, citizens deserve the right to their freedom of political speech. The Supreme Court has said we deserve the right to association and to our anonymity in doing that. And that's what they're trying to change and to attack. And they use the guise of transparency. And we are all for transparency. Government should be as transparent as possible. But again, citizens deserve their privacy.
We're visiting with Carl Bearden from United for Missouri. And one of the things that strikes me about this discussion, Carl, is that, for instance, my full-time job, and I disclose this, is with the Show Me Institute, which is a free market think tank now on Missouri Viewpoints. Of course, I just play the role of moderator, and I question everybody, hopefully as aggressively on either side. But when you look at other issues, very contentious issues, a pro-life or a pro-choice group, whether it's Planned Parenthood's PAC, whether it's Planned Parenthood Foundation, Missouri Right to Life, NARAL, the Southern Baptist Convention, any of these groups are on opposite sides of the abortion debate. Would they or could they potentially be affected, and all the donors have to be disclosed if what people are calling dark money laws are passed and require all of these donations to be made public?
Absolutely. So under the proposals is that if you give more than $5,000 is kind of the proposal now, as if there is a ceiling on freedom, right? So you have the free expression yourself, because you don't do more than 4,199 of that expression. What they're talking. It doesn't. If you give over arbitrary that they might insert into these bills, and whether again it's NARAL or whether it's Missouri Right to Life, they would publish your name, require your name to be published in a database as a donor to NARAL or Missouri Right to Life, and those names are available to the public. And so if you're, if you're some super nutcase activist, if you will, for either side, you would know who to go harass, whether at their jobs, at their homes, whatever. And that simply is not what should happen, and it would be unconstitutional to do so.
Arguments are being made, Carl, that freedom of speech just shouldn't consider pseudonyms, and people shouldn't hide behind donations, or they should make themselves public if they want to influence the policy in our state, or they want to influence culture. They should step out and do it by name. Do we have a history of requiring that, or what is the norm? What's been our history on that?
Well, we have campaign finance laws, which for quite some time have required reporting of donors to campaigns, to PACs, and to certain committees, but never to the nonprofits. As a matter of fact, back in the 1950s, late 1950s, the state of Alabama, the Attorney General of the state of Alabama, wanted to punish the members of the Alabama NAACP, and so he sent them a request for their membership. And in fact, they refused to do it, and he started to fine them and was going to throw people into jail. But the Supreme Court was very, very adamant to the fact that people do have the First Amendment and Fourth and 14th Amendment right of association and the right to do it anonymously, and that is covered under our Constitution. And so government is trying to force out people who may speak out in disagreement with them. You know, there are a lot of things. For instance, I talked about our scorecard earlier, and during this discussion during the Senate, scorecard organizations such as ours was brought up, and they thought because we were going to rate these people, or that we might let them know that we might rate a particular bill, that we were influencing the outcome of that, and therefore we should have to expose our donors to that. And the fact of the matter is the donors have that right to privacy. They have that right, that constitutional right and freedom of political speech without fear of harassment, because harassment does and will occur if that's revealed.
Is there an impact, as we wrap up here, Carl, is there an impact that this discussion, this debate, these proposals are having on getting legislation and policy dealt with in the state right now? I mean, is this something that's affecting other bills?
Well, it could in the future. I don't know that it is so far. There's some bleed over, particularly as the emotions get high and, you know, and commercials are run and so forth. But it would have in the future, because what will happen if they're successful, you will see less transparency on bills. You will hear less about what's going on in the legislature and some of the mechanics. I mean, we try to tell people, here's what's happening in your state legislature. Here's doing it. Here's who's doing it. And the fact of the matter is, if donors are concerned that they're going to show up in this government database, we may not be having the resources, and other groups have the resources to tell you about that. And so at this point, it comes up. You know, there are some members of the Senate, for example, that bring it up on every bill, regardless of its connection. But for the most part, I would say at this point it's not having an effect on bills, but it very well could.
All right, Carl Bearden from United for Missouri. Once again, as a matter of disclosure, United for Missouri is going to be one of the new sponsors of Missouri Viewpoints, which I greatly appreciate. But I always want to put that disclosure up there so people can take that into consideration when they hear what we have to say. So, Carl, people want to learn more. What's the best way to do it?
Well, they can go to our website at unitedformissouri.org. We have a Facebook page that's United for Missouri, and we're on Twitter at United, the number 4MO. So any way they can do that, they can send us an email at carl@unitedformissouri.org as well.
All right, Carl Bearden, thank you so much, and love to know what you think. The comment section is open on the Facebook page. Just look up Missouri Viewpoints, and hopefully we'll have a lot more of these interviews and these discussions throughout the remainder of the summer.